What's up guys, and welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Origins with me, TheOneIntegral, and as you can tell today we are starting Hoenn. Yes, we're starting off with the grass type starter Treecko and its subsequent evolutions, so that's what we're doing today. As always guys, be sure to suggest some more Pokemon for me to cover down below in the comments section, so you know, any Hoenn Pokemon you want to see. Do you want to see Lily or Grovyle? Do you want to see anything, anything else Hoenn Pokemon? I can't remember any Hoenn Pokemon off the top of my head now. Electric, Manectric, etc. What do you want to see? Let me know down below in the comments section, and the ones that gets the most sort of suggestions, or the ones I like, you know, the idea of, I will be covering soonish, hopefully. And then obviously after this we're doing Sinnoh, so feel free to put some suggestions for those down as well. But for now, let's take a look at Treecko. Treecko is number 252 in the National Pokedex, coming sort of, you know, right at the start of the Hoenn line. And its Japanese name is Kimori. It is the wood gecko Pokemon and is a pure grass type, being the grass type starter obviously. It stands at 0.5 meters or 1 foot 8 inches tall and weighs 5 kilograms or 11 pounds, so it's pretty small and pretty light overall. Looking at the models from Generation 6, you can see shiny Treecko, in terms of how different it is to normal Treecko, sort of has this really sort of a dark, almost bluey greenish skin colour, and its tail is red, and also its belly, its stomach, its chest is sort of a very light pale brown colour as well. Apart from that, its eyes are the same, so most of it changes actually. There's a good few changes there on shiny Treecko, which I do quite like. So Treecko being one of the starter Pokemon, you know, starter Pokemon tend to evolve fairly quickly, so you'll get your Treecko evolving into a Grovyle starting at level 16, so sort of the baseline is where most starters first evolve at, so it's fairly early evolving I guess. So, Treecko. It's a small green bipedal Pokemon, meaning it stands on 2 feet, generally uses 2 feet to run around. It has, as I said, it's green, it's got light green skin around its all over its body, apart from on its stomach here, where it has a sort of a reddish colour, reddish orange almost, on its stomach, coming out also onto its throat, and its, I guess you could say, a lower jaw, but you know, it's just sort of the throat and the bit there. It also has this big bushy green tail coming out of, obviously, its back end. It's a darker green colour. It's more of a sort of a leafy green, forest green, rather than the skin colour, which is more of a lime green almost. But Treecko has, as well as this tail, it has these 4 very thin and short limbs. They're not too big actually, but it does have, you know, there are 4 of them, and each of these end in 3 digits. So each of its hands, you can see there, have 3, I guess you can call them fingers, and each of its feet, which are actually pretty big compared to the rest of its body, have these 3 sort of little toes coming out. And you can see these fingers and these toes are very similar. They're rounded off. They're not clawed. They're very rounded, and we'll sort of look more at that later on. But that's Treecko. Apart from that, you know, it's got these 2 big eyes actually, and they're a nice sort of bright yellow colour, and its pupils, rather than sort of being, you know, I guess normal, it has these very vertical, thin black pupils, whereas most would sort of, you know, you'd have the pupil just follow the shape of the actual eye. This just sort of has a slit almost going down, which gives Treecko this sneaky looking look, I think. So, sneaky looking look. Good job, Matt. But yeah, that's Treecko. What can we learn from the Pokedex about Treecko? Well, we can learn that it's actually it's a cool, calm and collected Pokemon. So it never loses its temper or its heat. It stays calm, stays cool, and in whatever situation it's in, it's sort of like, okay, I know what to do here, I can do this. And I think one of the Pokedex entries specifically mentions that if it's faced off by a really powerful enemy, it just sort of, it will stand there. It won't be like, oh my god, what am I going to do? It'll just sort of stand there like, yep, okay, we got this, basically. But yeah, that's Treecko. More about actually what it can do. Its tail can actually sense humidity. It has these 2 parts to it, and it can use them, I guess, to move them about and sense humidity with them. And it can use this to actually predict the weather for the next day. So, interesting, you know, he's going to know when it's going to rain and snow and whatever, so it's quite useful to know, I suppose. But you can also use this tail to attack foes by, you know, slamming it around into them. So it can be used as sort of a weapon or an attack method, as well as, you know, useful in other ways. Treecko also has, some of these entries describe them as small hooks, and some of them describe them as small spikes. They're very similar, but it has these either loads of hooks or spikes on the bottom of its feet, very, very small, and these hooks or spikes actually allow Treecko to climb up vertical walls fairly quickly. It only says on the bottom of its feet, not its hands, so maybe it actually has to physically walk up the walls rather than climb up, but we can assume there's something similar on the hands maybe, as some animals in real life do have similar sort of properties and traits as well. allowing it to climb up walls. But yeah, you know, just allowing Treecko to be more agile and run about a bit. So what is Treecko based on? Well, looking at its species name, it sort of gives it away a bit. The wood gecko Pokemon. Treecko is indeed based on a gecko, or indeed a lizard. You know, gecko or lizard resembles both, so it could be a mix of them basically. But gecko is definitely in there, and in particular, Treecko has a very few similarities to the leaf-tailed gecko, which is a type of gecko that has appendages on it that look similar to leaves, and obviously Treecko's tail, we can assume, looks a lot like a leaf, and so, you know, when it's moving around and that, so that's very similar there. And the leaf-tailed gecko can also scale vertical walls, as we just heard. Treecko can do the same, so again, they're sort of combining in and mixing around similarities and traits from real-life Pokemon, real-life animals rather, into Pokemon. Pokemon aren't real, or are they? Who knows? Anyway, that is sort of what Treecko is based off of. Where did the names come from? Well, the Japanese name Kimori is a combination of Ki, meaning tree, and Mori, meaning forest. But it could also be Yamori, which means gecko. They're very similar, so it could either be the tree gecko or the tree forest. Both work, basically, because it's a grass type, but it's probably all three, basically, just mixed in together. The English name Treecko is very simply a combination of tree and gecko, so there's not really much else to sort of say about that, you know, again, based off of gecko, so it's going to be used in the name there. But before we move on to looking at its evolution, Grovyle, let's take a quick look at Treecko's size. Now, we mentioned it was 0.5 meters or 1 foot 8 inches tall, and you can see here that's how it sort of sizes up next to me and Ash. It's pretty small. It's about the same size as Pikachu, assuming the Pikachu on Ash's sprite is the right size. But yeah, there you can see Treecko there. It comes up to Ash's and my knees, basically, being 0.5 meters tall. So it's not huge, but you know, it can do some decent damage to Pokemon similar to a similar size of Pikachu, obviously, so maybe small, but do not underestimate its agility, its power, basically. But, yes, as I said, let's move on and have a look at its evolution, Grovyle. So Grovyle comes right after Treecko in the Pokedex at number 253, and its Japanese name is Sceptile. Very nice name there, I quite like it. It is also the wood gecko Pokemon, and is a grass type again. Grovyle gets a bit bigger in its evolution from Treecko and is now 0.9 meters or 2 foot 11 inches tall and weighs 21.6 kilograms or 47.6 pounds. So it gets a great deal heavier and, you know, sort of almost twice the same size, twice, you know, in terms of height, twice the size. Looking at the models from Generation 6, you can see shiny Grovyle there, very similar to shiny Treecko. We have sort of the bluey green coloured skin, and the red turning to a sort of a pale brown or light brown colour, and its leaves, as we'll talk more about in a minute, are sort of this dark red colour as well, very similar to how Treecko's tail was a dark red colour. So sort of just transitioning across there. Evolution wise, as we said, Treecko evolves at level 16 into Grovyle, and Grovyle will further evolve into Sceptile starting at level 36, so very basic starter evolution there. Bit higher than some at level 32, but you know, you're still going to get your Sceptile pretty early on in the game. So, Grovyle. It is a primarily green bipedal Pokemon, but it also has this red underside here going, you know, it's a bit bigger than where Treecko's was, but it goes like all the way down its throat, down, you know, its jaw, its throat, down its chest, stomach, and pretty much all the way to the, you know, the bottom of Grovyle's body, basically. But it does have this green stripe across its abdomen, across its stomach here, just going sort of from thigh to thigh almost, or hip to hip. This single green stripe, who knows what this green stripe particularly is, but it's just there. Very similar to Treecko, Grovyle has again the 4 limbs, but they're a bit longer this time, whereas Treecko's were sort of short and stubby almost. Grovyle's are actually a bit longer, and it has 2 claw-like digits at the end of each now, whereas Treecko had 3 fingers and 3 toes on each hand and foot respectively. Grovyle now has only 2 on each, which is a bit weird, and they're also more claw-like, you can see, rather than just sort of ending in these round ends. Grovyle actually has these proper claws on it, which looks really cool. But I don't know, you know, I don't know why it lost the toe. Who knows where the toe went, guys? Who knows? Grovyle, as we said earlier, has these leaves, and these leafy extensions come off the top of its head, on its wrists, and also its back end. You know, it's got these 2 leaves coming off almost like a tail. The one on its head is like just a leaf that just comes off the top of its head, just flows back. The ones on its wrists actually are leaves, but they're not as long. You know, they're very short. Needs are more used for attacking rather than actual just sort of decoration, almost like its tail is. Apart from this, Grovyle also has these 2 sharp yellow eyes, very similar to how Treecko's were, but are sort of a bit smaller compared to its body in general, and a bit sharper, a bit more, you know, focused. It has the same sort of pupils though, but just a bit bigger. As you can see, the black sort of the black sections at the front of the eye. But yeah, that's pretty much Grovyle there. What can we learn from the Pokédex entries about Grovyle? Well, it's actually a master of climbing trees in jungle environments. Because of its agility, it can just jump from tree to tree, branch to branch, and just jump around and basically use it to its advantage. So whatever you do, don't end up, picking a fight with Grovyle inside a jungle. Maybe just do it outside on, flat area maybe. Don't let it have the advantage basically. But yeah, it can jump from tree to tree and branch and just use its agility to its basic advantage. It can also use the leaves coming off its head and wrists and tail, as the tail, to camouflage itself. So obviously when Grovyle's moving fast around inside the trees, inside the leaves, it's going to help camouflage it. It's not going to be this big red object that's just going to stick out because these leaves are sort of going to blend in. It's not going to be amazing camouflage, but they can be used, and it's going to make it harder for you seeing all these leaves rustle around back and forth and whatnot. Grovyle also has these very powerful, strong thighs, as you can see in the models and also Sugimori art slightly, whereas its upper arms are sort of just like, they're just very thin and they just go out. Grovyle has big, strong, powerful thighs here, and these help aid its agility because it can then, jump around more, faster, quicker, whatever. Basically, again, increase that advantage it has. But Grovyle, where does it live? Inside a dense jungle. Obviously it's not going to live somewhere where it doesn't have an advantage. It's going to live somewhere where it can survive a bit easier. So since it can climb around and jump on these trees, then it makes sense that it lives inside these dense jungles and uses it to the advantage of itself, basically. So what is Grovyle based off of? Well, we move away from the gecko here. We're not looking at the gecko anymore, because even though Grovyle is the world gecko Pokemon, it doesn't have pretty much basically any gecko traits. It's more like a dinosaur, believe it or not. It resembles a dinosaur known as a Dromaeosaurus, and this dinosaur was actually believed to have feathers back when it was alive, and these feathers could, very similar to Grovyle's leaves on its head and its wrists and its back as well. So maybe that's, looking at the body shape of the Dromaeosaurus, you can see it looks very similar to how Grovyle is. If you maybe just pull the Dromaeosaurus up a bit, it's basically got the same sort of body shape and style, apart from maybe all the teeth in its mouth. Grovyle doesn't have that, but you guys get the idea there. Very similar. It doesn't have a tail, of course, Grovyle, but if you would put the leaves on the tail, that basically looks the same. However, it's also similar to another dinosaur, which is known as the Protochaeopteryx. And this is another dinosaur with a similar build again, and also this one had feathers. We know it had feathers, and you can see a picture there of what it might have looked like. And you can see the feathers line its whole body. Its arms are almost like wings, but only very short feathers there because it couldn't actually fly. But it does have these tail feathers coming off the back, and we know just from looking at fossil records and that this dinosaur had symmetrical feathers on its tail. So very similar to how Grovyle, you see, it doesn't have sort of one tail feather, one tail leaf, whatever. It has two, and they look exactly the same, and it might use these to maybe help itself jump around in the trees, just turn the leaves or whatever, just to help it jump about a bit. So again, a link there, symmetrical feathers on the tail, much similar to how Grovyle has these symmetrical feathers, or leaves rather, we can see here. So naming. Japanese name is Sceptile. This is based on the word jungle or possibly Ju meaning tree, and obviously then combined with reptile or possibly raptor, just looking at the dinosaur link there. So we have jungle and reptile, jungle reptile, or tree reptile, or possibly raptor because of the PT, but reptile does fit a bit better, but raptor could have indeed been influenced in that as well. The English name Grovyle is a combination of grove, which means like a group of trees, and reptile, so again sort of tree reptile, very similar naming there, so not much to say there. If we take a look at the size of Grovyle before we move on to the last Pokemon for today, you can see standing at 0.9 meters or 2 foot 11 inches, it actually looks smaller than you'd expect. If I show you there, boom, it looks tiny almost, to me at least. It only comes up just above Ash's waist, and basically just to my waist, being 0.9 meters tall, so it's pretty small. But I guess that helps its agility out as well. It can move around faster, less chance of it being caught, so it can just, it's not going to be as powerful, but it's just going to be able to move around and dart around much quicker than it would if it was a much bigger Pokemon. So yeah, that's your Grovyle there. If we then move on to, as I said, the last Pokemon for today, the evolution of Grovyle, Sceptile. So, Sceptile. It's number 254 in the National Pokédex, coming right after Grovyle, and its Japanese name is very similar, it's Jacane. So from going from Sceptile to Jacane. It is the Forest Pokemon now, and again it's a pure grass type, no type changes across the whole line here. Sceptile now stands at 1.7 meters or 5 foot 7 inches and weighs 52.2 kilograms or 115.1 pounds. So it's basically doubled in height almost from when it was a Grovyle, so we'll see that later on in the size comparison. Looking at the models from Generation 6, you can see here Shiny Sceptile, it's gone, I guess, it's slightly different to what Shiny Treecko and Shiny Grovyle had. It's gone from sort of this dark greeny blue almost to more of a bluey colour. It's a very light blue-green if that. And you can see on its back these orbs we can look at in a minute have turned red, and the stripe across its stomach and also the bit under its throat, neck, whatever, has gone sort of a yellowy colour almost rather than a browny colour like we had previously. So there's like a few changes to what we had previously on the shinies. So Sceptile, it's a large bipedal Pokemon that is primarily green. It's more green than Grovyle was, whereas Grovyle had more red than Treecko. Sceptile now has less red, so we're going opposite ways, guys. I don't know, but yeah, it's green with apart from this red stripe around its stomach here, and also the red throat or the red jaw or whatever. And the Sceptile has, very similar to how we had previously, the limbs we're looking at. Sceptile's limbs have gotten much longer, I think, from when they were Grovyle. They're very similar, but they've gotten a bit longer as well. And now they end with 3 digits. So Treecko we had 3, Grovyle went down to 2, now we're back to 3 again. I don't know. But these digits are actually a bit more claw-like, like Grovyle had. So not quite as claw-like, because you can see the toes are sort of exactly just claws, but almost like green claws. Don't ask me if that's like, they just have green claws or whatever, but yeah, so sort of like a mix of Treecko and Grovyle there. 3, but they're claws. It also has these blade-like leaves on the wrists, as you can see. Very similar to how Grovyle had them. Grovyle had 3 on each, but now Sceptile's only got 2 on each. Don't ask me where the last one went. Just stuff is mixing around here. But yeah, very blade-like leaves here, and also this large bushy tail. I can never quite make out what the tail is, but I think it's just the tail comes out and these spikes almost, or leaves, just come out the end of the tail. I can never quite get my head around it. Sceptile also has these yellow orbs or nodules on its back. There seem to be 6 of them, so 2 on it sort of at the bottom of its neck, 2 in the middle of its back, and 2 on its lower back, sort of just going down in pairs. And it has this longish neck that comes up with a small head on top, and this crest-like thing as well almost. So it's got these almost like ears, but not quite ears. But there's 2 big bits that go up and form a crest on its head, with this shallower bit in the centre here. And again, the eyes that had the yellow eyes, etc. So Pokédex entries for Sceptile. What do we learn? Again, like Grovyle, it's actually very agile. Even though it's much bigger, it's actually still very agile. Not quite as agile, I would assume, but still pretty agile. I mean, it's got, it's probably stronger as well, so it can move about a bit better. But it's not quite as small as Grovyle, so it's not going to be able to fit into certain places like it would. But Sceptile, rather than being sort of Grovyle, we could imagine it as some sort of thing that would always run around, jump around everywhere. But Sceptile can actually spend most of its time caring for plants and trees in the forest or in the jungle, because it just likes looking after plants and trees. And it uses actually what are referred to as seeds on its back, and it uses them to give nutrients. They're apparently filled with nutrients, and it can use them to, I guess, heal plants or help plants grow, and just do stuff like that. Sceptile was mentioned in some of the Pokédex entries that actually it regulates its body temperature by basking in sunlight. I'm sure most animals do this, or at least a good few of them do, but Sceptile is just particularly mentioned here for some reason. Maybe it's because it spends all the time in the jungle, so every now and again it'll just pop outside or top of the canopy and just be like, yes, make me warmer please. Something like that, who knows. But finally we also learn that the leaves on its arms here are actually very sharp edged. They're not just leaves, they're leaves that have been honed to cut and slice and kill, so definitely not something you would want to mess around with there. But that really seems to be it for Pokédex entries, so let's find out what Sceptile is based off of. Similar to Grovyle, we're looking at dinosaurs here, and that's actually similar to a dinosaur called the Dilophosaurus. And this dinosaur, I mean, yeah, looking at it, its body shape is very similar. It just, again, needs to stand a bit taller. Most dinosaurs we're looking at here are actually they're hunched over. Whereas if you pull this up so its body was straight up, it would look exactly the same as Sceptile, basically. Maybe if its arms were a bit longer too, but you get the idea. But yeah, the body shape is similar, and also this head crest it has on the top of its head, you can see there. Sceptile has a very similar head crest there, or a head crest, so head crest is certainly something to look at there. The tail, obviously, The Dilophosaurus' tail does not have leaves growing on it, but we're looking at Pokemon here, so there are going to be some changes. But that's basically what Sceptile is based on, pretty much. Name-wise for Sceptile, Japanese name is Jukain, which derives from Jukai, which means abundant leafage. So, just talking about forests again, really. And obviously, Dew is in there with tree and also jungle, just as jungle. So, they're all just sort of mixing in there. The English name Sceptile, however, is a bit more complicated. We have reptile, as you can see with the eptile bit on the end, but the SC could come from several different ways, several different, parts or different words, I guess. The first one could be Septridium, which is commonly known as a grape fern. It's basically some sort of fern, and this actually looks very similar to how its tail is, so that's possibly where that one comes in there. Or it could incorporate Sectile, which refers to the sharp blades it has. Sectile meaning sharp, dangerous, etc. So that's where that could come in, because Sceptile, Sectile, possibly. Or it could incorporate Scepter, which, Scepter, just sort of what a king would have, which refers to how Sceptile is the king of the forest. That title, I don't know where the title comes from, but that's the title Sceptile is given, so Scepter could be there. Or it could be Scissors, again referring to how it has these blades on its arms. Scissors are less likely, but Septridium, Sectile, Scepter, all of those could work, and obviously finish up with Reptile there. So it's a few more options there than usual. Now, before we switch over to look at Sceptile's Mega Evolution, because it actually does have one, remember, we look at its size. Now, being 1.7 meters or 5 foot 7 inches, it's now taller than Ash and just slightly taller than me, and you can see there. It sized up to us pretty well, actually. I wouldn't want to mess with that thing, especially with those nasty blades on its hands. But yeah, Sceptile's looking powerful now. Obviously, it's a bit bigger than Grovyle, so it's less agile, but it's not too much bigger anyway, so I'm pretty sure it could just still swing around the trees like Tarzan or something along those lines, jump about and look after the forest like it does. But, as I mentioned, Sceptile does indeed have a Mega Evolution, so let's take a quick look at that. So, what changes when we get Mega Sceptile? Well, obviously it's the same number in Pokedex, we know that. It turns to the Grass Dragon type, so it gains the Dragon type on the end there, which is really cool. It also changes in size. It goes from its 1.7 meters or 5 foot 7 inches to 1.9 meters or 6 foot 3 inches, so it gets a good deal bigger as well. In terms of weight, it does get a bit heavier as well, going up to 55.2 kilograms or 121.7 pounds. Looking at the models from Generation 6, you can see Mega Sceptile there. In terms of the shiny Mega Sceptile, the only real thing that's not different from the usual Sceptile is the fact that its orbs aren't all red. They're, they start at sort of a light yellow and they go on down to orange and then to the red near to its tail. So who knows, what that's about. But yeah, we also have this nice red point on its end of its tail as well, which is actually same as normal Sceptile. For some reason, that's decided to be kept, but who knows why? Who knows? Obviously, to evolve your Sceptile and also Mega evolve your Sceptile, you're going to need these Sceptilites, so that's pretty bog standard. So how exactly does Mega Sceptile change when it Mega evolves? Well, it's grown larger, as we know, with the height change, and it's also gotten a lot more elaborate in many ways. It has these red markings down its back and along its tail as well. It's sort of, as you can see in the Sugimori art, this red line that just goes down its back, and then these red rings around the tail as well, which normal Sceptile didn't have. And it's also got these wrist leaves, well, it has the wrist leaves anyway, but they've gotten a bit more elaborate. You can see the red marking, sort of the red bit on the end of one of them, and also we've had a bit cut out of the leaves, just sort of a bit extra, who knows exactly why, just to make them look fancier. And it also has this X shape of leaves across its chest, very similar to the leaves that are on its tail, just gains this sort of this X, I think it is, almost across its chest, just going up and down, sort of up and under its arms, basically. Just this X shape going across, just more decoration, basically. It also has got some more red markings around its eyes, as you can see. Sceptile did have a slight red marking around its eyes, but not quite as big as what Mega Sceptile has, which looks awesome. And it's also got more decoration on its head crest again, with some more cut out sections at the top, whereas normal Sceptile didn't. We also see in battle and whatnot, if you attack using this Mega Sceptile, it actually shoots the end of its tail off, and then it grows it back fairly quickly, so it uses this as some sort of attack method. And I think this is relating to how lizards, sometimes if they lose their tail, they can just easily grow another one back, so that's very sort of relative there. almost done for today, guys, but last up we have to look at Mega Sceptile's size. Now it's gone to 1.9 meters or 6 foot 3 inches, so it's got a bit bigger, and you can see here in the sort of the art or the size comparison, you can see it's a good bit taller than me now. I wouldn't want to mess with it, but the main focus here is on the tail, which you can hardly see because of how the model is situated, but it comes down and it's a nice big tail as well, pretty much half the size of Ash, so wouldn't want to get in the way of that if it was shot towards me. So yeah. So guys, that is pretty much it for this episode of Pokemon Origins. We looked at Treecko, Grovyle, and Sceptile, and also Mega Sceptile. Don't know why I was going to say Ivysaur then. But this is going to be it for today, guys. If you enjoyed this episode of Pokemon Origins, be sure to hit the like button down below and show your support, and also suggest some more Pokemon in the comment section too, for me to cover in the future. But for now, this is going to be it for me for today. I hope you enjoyed watching. I'll be seeing you next time. Goodbye, my friends.